So there's some terminology here, and these are highly technical terms. I would just make flashcards and memorize these. Okay. The first one is a medium, and there really is no symbol for the medium. But what it is it's the material through which the wave travels. Now, not all waves require a medium. For example, light can travel without a medium. Okay. Let's move right on here. Okay. The amplitude is how big, how bright, how loud, how big the waves are. Right. So in this case, the amplitude is actually this distance right here. Okay, so they'll talk about 3-foot swells, 4-foot swells, God forbid, like a 30-foot swell or something like that, right? If it's sound, it could be like, we could talk about the pressure. So there really aren't any units. Sometimes the symbol for amplitude is A, but we really won't use that. Okay, the next one is the wavelength. Now again, this is a highly technical term. What the wavelength is it's the length of the wave. Just memorize it. There's no way to really easily remember that, right? The wavelength is the length of the wave. So for example, this is the wavelength here, from the peak here to the peak there, right? We could also, by the way, go from 0 going up to 0 going up, right? This distance here is also the wavelength, right? So the wavelength, and the symbol for it is the Greek letter lambda. It's like draw a line like that and a line like that, and it's in meters. Okay, our next one that's moving right along is the wave speed. Okay, you poor kids, you gotta just memorize these. Okay, but here's how I remember this one. The wave speed is the speed of the wave. Yeah, the wave speed is the speed of the wave. It's how fast this thing is going past us. Right, this is just a snapshot of the wave at some instant, and this crest is actually moving by, just like on an ocean wave. The symbol for wave speed is V. Right, and the units are meters per second. That's what we should use, right? And by characteristic of the medium, I mean, for example, sound travels, I think, 343 meters per second in air, which is really pretty slow for sound. Sound travels something like 1,400 meters per second through water, and something, I think, like 5,000 meters per second through steel. So it depends on what it's traveling through. The wave speed can be quite different. Okay, let's move right on, Okay, the next one is the symbol T, okay? And it is the period. Now what it is it's the period of time for the whole wave to go by. So from this crest goes by, then you wait, and this one goes by, right? Whatever that time is, if you have a stopwatch, okay? So the symbol for it is a capital T, don't use a lowercase t, and it's in seconds. Okay, it's the time for one wavelength to go by. We wait for it, right? They're like boxcars, 1,000, 1,000, whatever it takes, right? For this spot to go by, and then suddenly this spot's next to you, right? And then the next one is the frequency. Now this, again, these are highly technical terms, okay? The frequency is how frequently the wave goes by. Does it go by 10 times every second? Yeah, then it has a frequency of 10 cycles per second, or 10 hertz. So our unit are hertz. Units are hertz, Hz. Right? It could be waves per second. You could say seconds to the -1. That's sort of an IB thing, right? The symbol for this is an F, like that, okay? And it's in hertz. And it's how frequently a wave goes past us, okay? Now let's look at some formulas here, okay? Basic wave formulas. Let's look at the first one here. Frequency is 1 over period, right? This is kind of cool, right? Let's think about this, okay? Let's imagine that a wave has a frequency of 10 hertz. That means that 10 waves go by every second. So the period would be 1 over the frequency, right? So it's going to be 1 over 10 is 0.1 seconds, right? So if I started off and I said, look, it takes 1/10 of a second for a wave to go by, well, 10 of them would go by every second, yes? Right? If it takes 1/10 of a second for a wave to go by, 10 would go by. So they go by with a frequency of 10 cycles per second, 10 waves per second, 10 hertz. The period would be 1/10 of a second. So that's that formula, right? And then the other one is kind of cool, right? Let's imagine that this wave is 3 meters long, right? It's 3 meters from this crest to this crest. Let's imagine that they go by us at a frequency of 8 hertz. That means 8 waves go by every second. Well, how fast are they going? Well, if 8 things 3 meters long go past us every second, then our velocity is just 8 times 3, right? 8 hertz, 8 waves per second times 3 meters per wave, right? That would be 24 meters per second. And this is like the most important formula, okay, that we're ever going to encounter in this whole unit. We'll use this over and over again. The velocity is the frequency times the wavelength. Let's do an example problem here. You're on the back of your sheet there, right? Okay. So example 1, what is the frequency of a wave that takes 0.12 seconds for the whole wave to pass by, right? Okay, so frequency is 1 over the period, right? So frequency is 1 over 0.12. I'm using my calculator here. 1 divided by 0.12, and that's 8.3, a lot of threes. And that's going to be hertz. Right, so remember, this is seconds. 1 over seconds is hertz. So that's this guy. That's pretty basic, right? We'll have some questions on that, right? And then example 2, what is the wavelength of an A440? So when you go to an orchestra concert, the violinist will play a 440 hertz pitch, right? If it's normal conditions like 20 Celsius, 1 atmosphere, et cetera, the speed of sound is 343 meters per second, right? So we'll use this formula here. V is F lambda. This is the wave speed, that's the frequency, that's the wavelength, right? So we're going to say 343 equals 440 times lambda, right? And then we're going to divide, right? So 343 divided by 440. And I get that lambda is 0.7795 meters, which is about 0.78, 0.780 meters. Like that. All right, there you go. There's a bunch of examples below this video. Do as many of those as you need to understand these formulas. It might be none of them. It might be 2 or 3. It might be all of them. I just don't know.